Hey everybody, it's Kieran Campbell from Kieran Campbell Nutrition, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I have a special guest today, and we are going to talk all about plant-based eating, because she's very well versed in plant-based, and because I think she pretty much lives, a plant-based lifestyle. So she's going to answer a bunch of questions that I have, and hopefully can fill you guys in along the way on any questions you might have. We'll talk about some of the health benefits, what science says about plant-based eating, who should or shouldn't follow plant-based diets, some of the myths or misconceptions about plant-based eating. And yeah, so let me introduce her and we can get right to those questions. Today I have Amy Brownstein, who is a registered dietitian nutritionist who believes that nutrition should be simple, actionable, and attainable. She enjoys researching, analyzing, and synthesizing nutrition science to provide evidence-based recommendations that help people develop sustainable habits and feel their best. As a registered dietitian, Amy works with people through her private practice, Nutrition Digested, to optimize sports performance, support healthy pregnancies, and incorporate more plants into their eating. She also writes for various online publications and health companies and has been featured in national media outlets like Forbes Health. I'm super excited to talk to Amy today, and I do want to do a little disclaimer here. I do work with Amy. We are contracted through the same company, and we very, very rarely get to meet each other in person. There's other dietitians too, but we all work remotely. And Amy's out in California. I'm in Michigan, but the company we work for is wonderful. So that's how I know Amy. So, hey, welcome, Amy. I'm glad you could be here.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for inviting me on. I am super excited to talk about plant-based eating.
Awesome. Okay, so let's just kind of dive right in, and I want to ask you, what is a plant-based diet? What does that consist of?
Yeah, so a plant-based diet is kind of exactly what it sounds like. It really just means eating more plant-based foods and less meats or animal-based products. So a significant emphasis on vegetables, fruits, beans and lentils or legumes, whole grains and nuts and seeds. And then it can include little bits of meat or fish or seafood. So technically, like both a vegetarian diet and a Mediterranean diet can kind of fall under the umbrella of a plant-based diet.
Okay, yep. And so plant-based doesn't necessarily just mean vegan, right?
No, no, no,
Yeah.
not at all. It gives you like a plant-based diet kind of gives you the flexibility to incorporate some dairy products if you want, some eggs if you want, or even like on occasion some fish, some meat. So in my household, as kind of Kieran mentioned, I practice a plant-based diet. So I avoid eggs, any meats, and then I don't really cook fish, but if I am out or at an event, I'll have some fish or seafood. But most of the foods that I eat are legumes or natural soy proteins or vegetables, fruits, whole grains.
Okay. Oh, cool. Yeah. So, like you mentioned, there's all different types of. There's not one, kind of like the Mediterranean diet. Yeah, there's not one
Yeah.
Mediterranean diet, just like there's not one plant-based diet. So there's
Right.
vegetarian, vegan, there's pescatarian, I've attended some webinars that through, I don't know if you know DJ Blattner, but she's big on
Mhm.
flexitarian, so including little bits of meat with more plant-based foods too. So none of those are wrong ways of doing it.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so wonderful. Thank you so much for your answer.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the health benefits, and like what the scientific research says about plant-based diets. So what does it say about the impact of eating plant-based, on overall health?
Yeah, so eating plant-based has really great benefits for overall health. So not only can it kind of contribute to lower risks of certain chronic diseases like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, cancers, but it also can kind of help you with reducing the risk of all-cause mortality or just kind of deaths. So one study from 23, or rather, it was a large analysis of multiple studies, and it contained over 2 million people. They found that people who most closely adhered to a healthy plant-based diet, so focusing more on unrefined carbohydrates, so whole carbohydrates, whole grains, fruits, vegetables, beans, and lentils, had a 16% reduced risk of all-cause mortality compared to people who maybe had less of a healthy kind of lifestyle, or even less of a healthy plant-based diet. So that would be including more like processed foods, packaged foods, more refined carbohydrates. So plant-based diet can be really impactful for your health.
Okay. Yeah, I've kind of read the same thing. Like it's sort of like the more and more research that I read, it just kind of solidifies that I just want to eat more plant-based over anything else and just kind of get rid of the animal products. And then there's the whole like environmental impacts and all that stuff too, which we're not going to get into, but just eating more plant-based just seems like a good choice overall, no matter what. No,
Yeah.
with health conditions for sure, but environmentally also. So
Yeah, so
our
a lot of the plant foods, why they're so beneficial for health is because they contain lots of different micronutrients. So think like vitamin E, which is a really strong antioxidant in your body. It also contains folate, which can be really important for pregnancy and fertility, and magnesium, which most people in general don't get a lot of in their diet. And plant foods are really high in magnesium.
Yeah, for sure. So are there any like well you mentioned heart disease. So any other
Yeah.
what other health conditions would a plant-based diet be beneficial for?
Yeah, so quite a few. Heart disease, there's significant benefits of plant-based diet, and some of that is due to the fact that like plant foods are really high in fiber. So fiber is this non-digestible carbohydrate that your body kind of ferments, but it also helps with removing some of the cholesterol from your body. And so that can bring down cholesterol levels, and high LDL cholesterol, or kind of bad cholesterol, is one of the big risk factors for heart disease. And so diets really high in fiber can help with lowering LDL. They can also, or more plant-based diets as well, specifically can help with lowering ApoB, which is another lipoprotein, and high levels of ApoB, because they're kind of small, dense particles, are associated with increased risks of heart disease. So incorporating more of these plant-based foods can kind of lower a little bit of your risk of heart disease. Another factor is that plant-based diets tend to be lower in saturated fat. So saturated fat is going to be in some animal products, it's in butter, some more like processed packaged foods as well. And so reducing your intake of saturated fat can also affect your heart disease risk. The one kind of caveat here is that when you reduce your consumption of animal products, you don't necessarily want to replace it with refined grains like, regular pasta, white bread, white rice, because that may not be as beneficial for health. Instead, you want to be replacing these saturated fat sources with foods that are very high in fiber. So, for example, reducing maybe your red meat intake and then doing maybe more bean-based dishes for dinner instead of like a pasta dish, or adding in maybe some beans and topping them with nuts and seeds, which are great sources of unsaturated fats that can all kind of contribute to reducing your risk of heart disease.
I love those suggestions. Thank you. What about like, because I've run into a lot of patients that have not only heart disease, but diabetes as well. I'm assuming that it's also good for diabetes.
Yes, it is. Again, you want to be prioritizing more of those whole grains versus the refined carbohydrates. So the whole grains contain that fiber, and the fiber slows the digestion of sugar in your bloodstream, and that kind of prevents some of the increases in blood sugar levels. And so that's really great for people with diabetes as well. And also, again, like plant-based diets are a little bit lower in saturated fat, and saturated fat does play a role in type 2 diabetes as well. So plant-based diets can be really great for people who have diabetes too.
Very cool. Okay. So now what about some of the potential nutrient deficiencies that like what should we watch out for if you're going to follow like a strict plant-based diet?
Mhm. Yeah, so a lot of the potential nutrient deficiencies may depend on the person and like their genetics, their lifestyle, that sort of thing. So I always do recommend talking to your doctor when you go for your annual visit and saying, okay, look, I follow a plant-based diet. This is what a plant-based diet means to me. And what additional like blood work or things should we monitor rather than kind of supplementing things blindly.
Mhm.
So, in particular, there are a few nutrients that we want to pay attention to with plant-based diet. And one would be vitamin D. Dairy products are often fortified with vitamin D. Still, we do get most of our vitamin D from the sun. So, again, that's one that's going to depend a little bit on your genetics and your lifestyle. Vitamin B12, so that is found in dairy products, meats, anything animal based. There is one good natural kind of plant-based food that has B12, and that is nutritional yeast. So it's that kind of yellow powder. Um, and you can add that in your diet, like top soups, salads, pasta dishes with nutritional yeast to get in more of that nutrient. Also looking for some um, fortified products. So like fortified soy milk is a great option to get in some of that B12. Another nutrient would be iron. And so iron is going to be in foods like lentils, beans, tofu, and leafy green vegetables. So just making sure you can kind of incorporate some of those foods into your diet. And then with plant-based iron, you do want to eat it with a source of vitamin C. So like broccoli, strawberries, kiwis, red and green bell peppers, citrus, tomatoes. That's going to enhance your iron absorption. And then another nutrient that you may want to be a little bit mindful of is definitely calcium. So calcium is really good for bone health. It's often found in a lot of dairy products. And a lot of the plant-based milks like soy milk, almond milk, some oat milks, they're going to be fortified with calcium as well. So just double check when you're buying a plant-based milk to make sure it's fortified with calcium. Yogurts for plant-based are not the equivalent to dairy yogurts in terms of like the full nutrition profile.
Mhm.
So definitely if you are going for a plant-based yogurt, make sure that there is some calcium in there too, to just ensure you're getting kind of the most out of that food source. But, it's totally possible to get all your nutrient needs from a plant-based diet.
Yes, I totally agree. It just depends on how you
Mhm,
incorporate those foods, make sure you're getting a variety and like you said, maybe mention it to your doctor because they're the ones that can, order labs to see if you're
mhm,
deficient in anything specific. So there's no need to just kind of go gung ho with all the vitamins and minerals if you don't need
mhm.
to. From your understanding, like, are there any certain individuals who shouldn't follow a plant-based diet?
Um, So people with disordered eating or eating disorder currently or a history of that maybe should be a little bit mindful of a plant-based diet, and kind of before starting that they should talk with their eating disorder team to make sure that it's going to be safe for them to do. But besides that, a plant-based diet can really benefit a lot of people. It's totally fine during pregnancy. You can meet all of the increased nutrient needs with a plant-based diet. People with advanced stage kidney disease may, want to be mindful of a plant-based diet or talk to their doctor or certainly work with a registered dietitian. because their protein needs may be a little bit different, and they may also need to limit certain nutrients that are really abundant in plant-based foods. So, that's one that I would not start a plant-based diet on my own if I had advanced kidney disease. Rather, if this was something of interest, I would work with a medical team and registered dietitian.
Yeah, because they can actually uh you look at your labs and your personal
Mhm.
medical history and all that and come up with like a
Yeah.
specialized, you need this much potassium. And so
Mhm.
certain foods and for foods that are more appropriate and than others maybe.
Yeah, and different preparation methods to kind of affect that
Right. Yeah.
nutrient content too.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so how can plant-based eaters actually ensure that they're getting enough of protein? Because I know I talk to a lot of guys especially who their main concern is not getting enough protein on a plant-based diet, and I have to reassure them like that's not necessarily true there, because
Mhm.
I mean there's protein in oats, oatmeal, and there's
Mhm.
protein in
Mhm.
broccoli, and it just kind of blows their mind. How, I guess, do you kind of educate people on getting enough of certain things like protein and iron and
Mhm.
omega-3s, uh, key nutrients?
Yeah, definitely. So getting enough protein is a huge concern for people when they think of a plant-based diet. And it is totally possible to get enough protein on a plant-based diet without supplements. If you're a very serious athlete and you have incredibly high nutrient needs, maybe a protein supplement like protein powder, protein shakes can be beneficial. But for most individuals, you can get enough protein through your diet. It's just kind of having an idea of what these protein sources are, what like the portion sizes you need to eat to get like a certain amount of protein kind of looks like.
Mhm.
And adding in or kind of mixing and matching a variety of foods so you're not just getting all of your protein from one thing. All foods contain protein, it's just in different amounts. And so when I'm reviewing someone's protein intake, as you mentioned, Kieran, like even broccoli has some protein. I don't necessarily count the broccoli in like the protein. I focus more on like whole grains, which are a great source of protein. And then like beans, lentils, natural soy foods like edamame, soy milk, tempeh, tofu, soybeans, soy curls, things like that, to kind of add up their protein intake. So for example, if someone weighs about 150 pounds and we're trying to get them to consume about 1 gram per kilogram of their body weight of protein, that's kind of about 70 grams of protein. Their day of eating to meet that protein would be about a cup of cooked oatmeal with soy milk, topped with some chia seeds, hemp seeds, and flax seeds. That's going to give them about 20 grams of protein. Um, then lunch is about a cup of cooked lentils, half a cup of cooked quinoa, and then a bunch of vegetables. That'll give them about 24 grams of protein. And dinner, we're doing 4 ounces of cooked tempeh, half a cup of cooked brown rice, and again, a lot of vegetables, and that'll give them about 25 grams of protein. And then for snacks, you could do like 2 tablespoons of peanut butter and some vegetables or toast, 2 tablespoons of hummus and some vegetables, and that'll get the person at about 70 grams of protein. So it's not like too difficult. It's just recognizing that, maybe you need that cup of cooked lentils versus like one small spoonful at your lunch.
Yeah. I love all the examples you've kind of been giving along the way. Which brings us to my next question is what, I guess, how would you instruct someone who's brand spanking new to like plant-based eating on how to move forward with a plant-based diet?
Yeah, so I think it depends a lot too on what your goal is and how you're defining plant-based.
Mhm.
Are you hoping to move towards more vegetarian? Are you just looking to add some more plant-based foods for your diet to your diet? Are you looking to reduce your risk of any certain health conditions or improve any blood sugar or cholesterol levels, for example. And that may define like your approach and kind of where you want to end up with more of your plant-based eating. So if you're brand new to doing more of a plant-forward diet, I would say pick a couple of vegetables that you like, keep them on hand and try adding them to some dishes you're already cooking. Frozen vegetables are great. They're just as nutritious, if not more so than fresh produce. And you can keep some on hand to always add to meals if you don't see vegetables on your plate. So I like to tell people the goal is, with lunch and dinner, you want to see some vegetables on your plate. And for
Mhm.
some people, if they don't eat a lot of vegetables, that's a huge change. But just getting to that like thought of, okay, every meal should have a vegetable. So, for example, if I'm making pasta and marinara sauce for dinner, I will open a bag of frozen broccoli or frozen chopped spinach and I'll add that into the sauce. And there I've added in vegetables. And that's one way to kind of start moving towards more of a plant-based diet. Other,
Nice.
other ideas would be, adding beans to meals. You can either do like bulk beans and cook them yourself, and that can be a little bit cheaper, but it's definitely requires a little bit more thought and preparation and time. Or you can also do canned beans. And I would say reduce like half of the meat at your meal or reduce the meat at your meal by half and then add in beans to kind of help with more of that protein.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and that's another kind of start for that. You can also do a meatless dinner once a week or a meatless meal.
Mhm.
And those are some other ways. I think tofu and tempeh and other soy proteins can be really overwhelming for people. It's
Mhm.
definitely a different flavor, it's a different texture. And you don't need to jump right into those options to be more plant-based, kind of work towards that if
Mhm.
you want.
Yeah. I love tofu. I mean, but I mentioned it to some patients and they're just you should see the look on their face. It's just it's I don't know. You say the word tofu and their mind just automatically it's such a negative word or something, a negative food. But there's so much you can do with it. You can roast it. You can make the tofu crispy. You can make it taste however you want. You can by marinating it, and there's so much you can do with it. Put it in soups, make your own
Mhm,
hot and sour soup. It has tofu in it.
mhm,
So, but yeah, I love that you mentioned like the meatless Monday because I always mention that to patients too, along with like making sure they're getting a fruit or a vegetable at every meal,
mhm,
that type of thing. So those are great, steps or things that beginners can do to make
mhm.
things more, get more plants in their life. I just want to ask really quick, do you have any like favorite plant-based snacks or pantry staples that you use often or eat often?
Yeah, I do. I love roasted chickpeas. So you can buy them at the store or you can make your own. And you just kind of you want to dry the chickpeas a little bit before you cook them if you make them. And then toss them with some oil and your favorite seasoning mix, cook them, and they're like a very crunchy, kind of salty, maybe garlicky snack. And I think they're a really good replacement to chips
Yeah.
because it gives you that like kind of munching um, like sensation, fills that need. And they're really flavorful and they're full of protein and fiber as
Yeah, and
well.
they're filling. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is like my number one snack. I also love doing some popcorn. Or I do a lot of toasts. So some toast with avocado, or I'll do toast with some Greek yogurt on it, or toast with a little bit of cottage cheese. Just trying to have some more of that like balance as well of the like kind of protein or some healthy fats and the fiber
Mhm. Yeah.
toast.
Oh, it sounds great. Okay,
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about some of the misconceptions and the myths involved with plant-based eating. So, what are some of the myths or misconceptions that you've come across?
So we've kind of talked about one already, and it's that you can't get enough protein with a plant-based diet. Totally possible. Another is that you can't like build muscle or have muscle gains or muscle recovery with plant protein, and that is not the case. Research has shown that soy or pea protein can be just as effective as whey protein with muscle recovery in athletes. Um, Another kind of misconception is that soy proteins are not safe for men, and that they affect some hormone levels. And that is not the case unless you're eating like 20 blocks of tofu a day. Having tofu at your dinner a few times a week is totally fine.
Mhm.
And I think that like misconception about soy proteins is definitely a hurdle for a lot of people trying to switch to more of a plant-based diet, or whenever I mention adding in tofu or tempeh, they're a little less inclined because of that.
Mhm.
And then I think with plant-based diet as well, some people, or, plant-based is different from vegetarian and vegan, like we've talked about. You
Mhm.
don't need to eliminate all animal-based products. And so just realizing that this diet is flexible, and you can still enjoy some of your favorite foods, or you don't need to like restrict things.
Mhm.
You can have uh, like that piece of steak like once a month if you wanted to, when you're out to dinner. It's really just trying to add in more plant foods and reduce some of those animal products. So those would be some of the like bigger misconceptions I hear, but I'm curious too, Kieran, in like your experience, what are some things you've heard about plant-based diets?
Well, when I work at the hospital, I mentioned eating more plant-based to a lot of the heart patients, and that I don't know if you every clinical dietitian probably gets this, but they think they can only eat cardboard or it's going to taste like cardboard. And I'm like, no, like once, oh, I think a lot of the problem is people don't like to cook anymore, or they don't like to experiment, I guess, in the kitchen with all the different cooking methods and, with regular herbs and spices. And it doesn't have,
Mhm.
things don't taste like cardboard. You don't have to restrict yourself to rabbit food, you
Yeah.
know? So,
No, 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 you don't. And I think like a lot of people may also think that like you just are eating salads. Like salads are one of my
yeah.
least favorite ways of eating vegetables.
Mhm.
I rarely eat salads, like, and still meet all of the vegetable needs. So, it can be really tailored to you. And like you said, experimenting with different herbs and spices can make a huge difference. And you know, plant-based diet doesn't necessarily need to require a lot more cooking. You can, again, tailor it to your needs. You can use some frozen foods, partially prepared foods, quick
Mhm.
cooking grains, kind of up to you how you want to do it. And just experimenting with flavor as well. Like if you really like basil, you can add basil to everything.
Mhm.
Um, and it's going to taste good, like drawing on flavors you enjoy for it.
Right, exactly. Okay, so like you mentioned, plant-based eating does not mean giving up or restricting your favorite foods. So I think that's a key point right there. I think that's great. Um, so in closing, we're kind of getting down to the end of it. I do want to ask you, like, if anyone else has any questions, how can they get a hold of you or learn more about you?
Yeah, so they can go to my website, nutritiondigested.com, or they can follow me on Instagram at nutritiondigested_RD. And I do share some of my favorite ways of cooking tofu, tempeh, beans, even that roasted chickpea recipe. So people can definitely look there and learn more about some of the plant-based eating.
Oh, I got my little guy here. Thank you, Amy. If yeah, definitely, I'll put your website in the show notes and everything, or in the caption, so people can find you. But I really appreciate you taking the time today talking about plant-based eating and what the research says. Kind of shutting down all those myths and misconceptions. So thank you for being here. And
Yeah.
thanks everybody who tuned in today, watched the video. If you need Amy or if you have any questions for her about plant-based eating, please visit her website and reach out to her on social media. Okay. So thank you,
Yeah.
Amy.
Thank you, Kieran. I appreciate this. And
Yep.
I will talk to you later then.
Sounds great. All right. Have a good day.
You too. Bye,
Bye.
buddy.